penniless college student lent his phone to a stranger, not knowing she was a wealthy philanthropist who would soon call with an opportunity that would transform his life. The icy wind cut through Brian's worn coat as he stood under the chipped awning of a bus stop, his breath clouding in the frosty air. The sun had sunk below the city's edge, casting the sky in shades of deep violet and slate. He rocked on his heels to stay warm, his frozen fingers buried in his pockets, his phone teetering at 1% battery. He exhaled heavily, willing the bus to arrive sooner. After a grueling 10-hour shift clearing tables, all he craved was his chilly apartment and a moment to rest. Then he noticed her. A woman, perhaps in her late 30s, hurried toward him across the pavement, her polished heels tapping sharply, her anxious eyes and refined attire, a sleek coat worth more than his monthly rent, seemed out of place in this gritty corner of town. Her hair, though neatly styled, was slightly tousled by the breeze. She stopped before him, catching her breath. "Excuse me," she said, her tone urgent yet steady. "I'm so sorry to ask, but my phone was stolen. I need to call my driver. It's urgent. Could I use your phone for just one call?" Brian blinked, the cold slowing his thoughts. Her request took a moment to sink in. She pressed on, sensing his pause. "I know it's strange to ask, but I'm in a bind. My car broke down a few blocks away, and someone grabbed my phone while I was walking. Please, just one call." He glanced at his dying phone, now at 1%. He didn't know her, and this battered device was his lifeline. Yet something in her gaze, not quite desperation, but a compelling sincerity, made him trust her. He unlocked the phone and handed it over. "Go for it." She took it with a grateful nod. "Thank you, really." Turning slightly, she dialed a number from memory and spoke in a low, clear voice. "It's me. I'm at 5th and Halston." My phone's, not quite desperation, but a compelling sincerity, made him trust her. He unlocked the phone and handed it over. "Go for it." She took it with a grateful nod. "Thank you, really." Turning slightly, she dialed a number from memory and spoke in a low, clear voice. "It's me. I'm at 5th and Halston. My phone's gone, but I'm okay. Can you pick me up? No police, please. Just come quickly." She hung up, exhaling with relief, and returned the phone. "Thank you again. You didn't have to do that." Brian shrugged, slipping the nearly dead phone back into his pocket. "No big deal. You seemed like you needed it." "I did," she said, studying him closely. "What's your name?" "Brian," he replied simply, expecting nothing more. "Well, Brian," she said with a warm, genuine smile, "you've saved me a lot of trouble tonight." He gave a small smile. "Happy to help." A brief silence hung between them. She seemed to want to say more, but headlights cut through the dusk. Everything else. Her gaze lingered, thoughtful. Then she stepped toward the car, where a suited driver held the door. Before climbing in, she turned back. "Take care, Brian." "You too," he said, raising a hand. The car pulled away, vanishing into the evening. Brian rubbed his hands together, checked his now-dead phone, and sighed, turning back to wait for the bus. He had no idea he'd just lent his phone to Clara Whitmore, a reclusive tech mogul and founder of a major charitable foundation. Nor did he know she'd seen something in him, something rare, something she hadn't encountered in years. Though the moment felt fleeting, it would soon ripple far beyond that cold bus stop. Clara had made her call quickly, her voice calm but firm, like someone accustomed to being heard. She held Brian's phone a moment longer, her fingers tracing its worn case as if grounding herself. Handing it back, she met his eyes with a look he couldn't quite place. "Thank you," she said again, her gaze, the curb. She glanced at it, then back at him. "You're a student?" she asked, noting the faded university logo on his backpack. "Yeah," he said, shifting awkwardly. "Last year, just trying to get by." She nodded, as if piecing something together. That explains the tired eyes. He chuckled softly. Yeah, that and everything else. Her gaze lingered, thoughtful. Then she stepped toward the car, where a suited driver held the door. Before climbing in, she turned back. Take care, Brian. You too, he said, raising a hand. The car pulled away, vanishing into the evening. Brian rubbed his hands together, checked his now-dead phone, and sighed, turning back to wait for the bus. He had no idea he'd just lent his phone to Clara Whitmore, a reclusive tech mogul and founder of a major charitable foundation. Nor did he know she'd seen something in him, something rare, something she hadn't encountered in years. Though the moment felt fleeting, it would soon ripple far beyond that. Bus stop. Clara had made her call quickly, her voice calm but firm, like someone accustomed to being heard. She held Brian's phone a moment longer, her fingers tracing its worn case as if grounding herself. Handing it back, she met his eyes with a look he couldn't quite place. Thank you, she said again, her gaze holding a mix of gratitude and curiosity. A faint birthmark under her right eye caught his attention, like a delicate shadow. He shifted, avoiding her stare. No problem. You didn't ask who I was, she noted suddenly. He blinked. Didn't think I needed to. She tilted her head, intrigued. Most people would. If you wanted me to know, you'd have said something, he replied with a shrug. Clara paused, her lips parting as if to speak, then stopped. Instead, she offered a quiet, authentic smile, one that felt rare, like it hadn't been used in a while. What's your name? She asked softly. Brian, he said, then added lightly, just a broke student tryin'. She gave a soft laugh. Nothing about you feels just anything. Before he could respond, the car's headlights swept over them again. The sleek vehicle returned, parking smoothly. Clara glanced at it, then back at him. I hope life treats you kindly, Brian. He smiled awkwardly. Kindness seems in short supply these days. Maybe, she said, stepping back. But you didn't hesitate. That matters. As the driver opened her door, Brian pulled a crumpled paper from his jacket, a torn notebook page scrawled with job leads and deadlines. He folded it and tucked it away. Clara noticed, her eyes flicking from his weary face to his frayed coat and worn backpack, then back to the quiet strength in his gaze. She nodded, more to herself than to him, and slipped into the car. The door closed softly, and the car melted into the night. The wind sharpened, and Brian turned up his collar, his breath fogging again. The bus was still nowhere in sight. He sat on the cold bench, hands clasped. Encounter already fading like a dream, but her voice, her presence lingered in his mind. He leaned back, staring at the darkening sky. Just another night, or maybe not. Brian's life was a constant juggle, teetering between exhaustion and survival, dreams and daily demands. Most days began before sunrise, when the city was quiet and frost coated the streets. He'd slip out of his cramped apartment, sling his tattered backpack over his shoulder, and head to his first job at a campus coffee shop. He served students who slept better than he did, memorized orders for professors who never knew his name, and forced smiles for customers too distracted to see his fatigue. After the cafe, he'd rush to classes, sometimes still smelling of coffee grounds, then head to the library to tutor freshmen for a few bucks an hour. Weekends were tougher, night shifts at a rundown parking garage, where he studied a leaky window and a clanging radiator that stole his sleep. Still, it was home, and every evening he called his mother, who lived hours away in a small town. She'd been a seamstress until arthritis stopped her, and now her health was fading. Brian sent what money he could, skipping meals or books to cover her medicine. He never complained. He held doors for strangers, helped a neighbor with her groceries, and once gave half his sandwich to a man shivering in the rain, walking away before thanks could be offered. That was Brian. But kindness didn't cover tuition. One chilly afternoon, in the campus library, he stared at an email on his cracked laptop screen. Scholarship decision, regretfully declined. The words hit like a blow. We acknowledge your effort, but your application lacks the extraordinary achievements we require. In other words, he wasn't enough. He closed the laptop carefully, hiding his frustration. Around him, students laughed and planned internships abroad. Brian exhaled, his throat tight, not with anger, but with bone-deep weariness. That night, after a shift at the garage, he sat on a stone bench near the science building, the sky a deep indigo. His phone, cracked and flickering at 5%, buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, thinking it was a wrong number. But something made him answer. "Hello?" A familiar voice came through, warm and precise. "Brian, this is Clara Whitmore." He froze. She continued. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I've been meaning to contact you since that night, but I wanted to confirm I had the right number." "Miss Whitmore?" he stammered. "I wasn't expecting." "I know," she said gently. "But you made an impression. When someone makes you pause and reflect, you don't let that pass." Brian stayed silent, unsure. Her tone softened further. "I've seen enough of the world to recognize authenticity. I'd like to meet again in person if you're willing." He swallowed. "Sure, I'd be open to." "Good," she said. "Tomorrow, my driver will pick you up." The call ended abruptly. Brian stared at his dark phone, the quiet campus humming around him. He didn't know what he'd agreed to, but for the first time in ages, a spark of hope flickered. The next morning, Brian stood nervously outside his building as the same black car pulled up. The driver, familiar from that night, gave a nod. "Mr. Brian, Ms. Whitmore is expecting you." Brian slid into the plush back seat, clutching his backpack, feeling out of place in the leather and pine-scented interior. Her desk, where a folder waited. "You helped me without knowing who I was. Let me tell you now." She sat, her voice steady. "I'm Clara Whitmore, founder of Whitmore Impact Ventures. We fund education, healthcare, sustainability. But that's not important yet." She slid the folder toward him. Inside were documents, screenshots, photos. Brian frowned, confused. "I had my team look into you," she said gently. Not invasively, just enough to understand someone who helps a stranger without expecting anything. He flushed. "You researched me?" "Yes," she said. "I found a young man, working 3 jobs, supporting his mother, still making time for others. A student rejected for scholarships, not for lack of effort, but for not standing out in the ways they measure." He shifted, uneasy. "Why tell me this?" Her eyes softened. "Because I see you, Brian. I was you once." He blinked. "I grew up in a trailer park," she said. "Lost my parents at 16 in a fire. I clawed my way into business. Turned survival into success. But somewhere, I forgot how much a single act of kindness can mean. You reminded me." Brian's throat was tight. "I don't know what to say." "You don't need to," she replied, pulling an envelope from her desk. "This is a full scholarship, tuition, housing, books, everything. No debt. I only ask that you live the life I know you're already chasing." His eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely," she said. He shook his head, stunned. "Why me?" "Because you're not chasing attention," she said. "You're chasing decency, and that's rare." She paused, then continued. "I also want you to join a project I started, Leading with Kindness. It's a 3-month program for people with strong values, not just resumes. You'd live at our retreat center, work with mentors, and if you excel, there's a permanent role." Brian could barely breathe. "This is unbelievable." Clara smiled. "It's real, but only if you say yes." He looked at the scholarship letter. Her expression wasn't pity. It was recognition. "I don't know if I'm worth this," he said quietly. "You are," she said firmly. "You earned it when you handed me that phone." After a long pause, he nodded. "Then yes, I'm in." She extended her hand, and as he shook it, something shifted. A new chapter began. The tired student from the bus stop had stepped into something bigger, and the woman who thought she'd seen it all was starting to see anew. At the Whitmore Foundation's retreat, nestled in quiet hills, Brian felt like he'd entered another world, far from campus chaos and city noise. The program gathered 20 young adults, activists, scholars, entrepreneurs with polished resumes. In his faded hoodie and worn sneakers, Brian felt out of place. During introductions, others listed accolades, published papers, global awards. He said simply, "I'm Brian. I study biology and work odd jobs, here to learn." No one mocked him, but their curious glances asked, "How are you here?" The first week was tough. The program challenged not just intellect, but character, ethical debates, late-night talks on empathy versus authority, simulations forcing hard choices. Others spoke with ease about theory. Brian listened, soaking it in. When a group project stalled due to clashing egos, he didn't compete or argue. He listened to each person, calmed their frustrations, and refocused them on their shared goal. "It's not about winning," he said. "It's about what's right." His quiet words resolved the conflict. Their group's presentation was among the best. From then on, others saw him differently, not flashy, but steady, present. He noticed small things, someone skipping a meal, another struggling silently, and acted quietly, leaving food or checking in. Midway through, the program gave stipends for expenses. For Brian, it meant extra money for his mom. But when his roommate Mateo planned to leave because he couldn't afford a flight home for his brother's hospital bills, Brian handed over his stipend without hesitation. "Take it," he said. Mateo protested, but Brian insisted. "You need it more." Mateo hugged him, speechless. Clara learned of this through a coordinator's anonymous note. She didn't need to ask who it was. She watched Brian closer after that, his quiet listening, his ability to draw others in, his truthfulness without ego. In a world that valued flash, he was substance. During a seminar on understated leadership, Brian spoke from experience. "Someone saw something in me when I had nothing. They didn't give me money, they gave me trust. That's what changes lives." Clara felt a pang. She'd built this program for leaders, but Brian was something more, a quiet force for good. In the final week, Clara invited Brian to Ridgewell, a rural town her foundation was helping with clean water. They flew in a small plane over patchwork fields to a place forgotten by maps. The townsfolk greeted Clara warmly, and she listened to their needs with care. Handay, small plane over patchwork fields to a place forgotten by maps. The townsfolk greeted Clara warmly, and she listened to their needs with care. Brian noticed her glancing back, as if searching for something. That evening, on a porch with sweet tea and dusty air, Clara opened up. "I grew up in a place like this. My parents, a mechanic and a waitress, died in a fire when I was 16. I built my life from nothing, made millions, then lost it all to a betrayal. I rebuilt, but I stopped trusting." Brian listened silently. She continued, "Then you lent me your phone, no questions asked. You've been unraveling something in me I thought was sealed shut." He smiled faintly. "Just seemed right." "You don't see what you've done," she said softly. "You're making me believe in people again." He met her gaze, seeing not the mogul, but someone who'd fought to stay whole. "I'm glad," he said, "because people believe in you too." She laughed, a rare, unguarded sound. They sat in quiet, the stars the moment enough. At the program's closing celebration, under soft lights in the Whitmore Estates garden, Clara watched Brian laugh with peers, still humble despite his success. Later, under a flowering tree, she handed him a letter. "Director of Human Impact Initiatives." "It's not just a job," she said. "It's a voice. I trust yours." He was stunned. "Why me?" "Because you lead with heart," she said. You remind people what matters. Then, hesitating, she added, there's more. I've spent my life thinking love weakens you, but with you, I feel enough. Brian took her hand. Life's not a balance sheet, he said softly. I don't know the future, but with you, I'm not scared of it. They stood, hands linked, walls crumbling. Two souls now bound by something real.